Kick and chase by Mullins. Kick and chase again by Mullins. It'll be a miracle. Oh, it is a miracle. Fafita tries to crash his way over. He does. Fafita got the ball over the line. Hunter's kick is over the sideline for a 40-20.
Yeah, g'day champions and welcome to 40-20 Sports. Got a massive episode coming up for you today. We're going to look at three teams and how their predictions are looking for the start of the year. We're going to look over the Penrith Panthers, the Parramatta Eels and the St George Illawarra Dragons. They're going to be the three teams we touch on today. Have a bit of a dive into some of those players there. A few hot topics coming up. Before we get stuck into that though, want to say that Supercoach is now, they've started the season, officially launched, so we have a league code out. League code for the 40-20 Cup this year is 122-155. Touched on it in our last episode. The amount of support we got last year was huge. You know, we had 600 to 700 teams in this competition for the 40-20 Cup. Only had a first prize getter with a merch pack there. So this year, we said in our last video, we're going to extend that to a first, second and third. Massive announcement. First place for the 40-20 Cup to reward all those people for showing up last year. The 700 odd of yous last year. First prize will be $500 cash. Second prize will be $250 cash. And third will win a merch pack. So a massive upgrade of prizes from last year. Just want to say thank you to everyone that got in and got involved last year. Fingers crossed we can make this thing bigger. But yeah, if 700 people show up, again, as they did last year, and all we've got to hand out is one prize for first place, I think that's a little bit slack. I think we can do better than that. So top three, 500 for first, 250 for second, merch pack for third spot. The only thing with that is that you will have to either one, subscribe to our YouTube channel or like us on Instagram, follow us on Instagram, sorry. So that's the only perk. We're not doing anything else other than that. That is the only thing you need to be doing is following us on Instagram or subscribed to our YouTube channel. So that's pretty much it. That's all we've got that you need to do to be in the running to win $500, $250 or a merch pack. Merch pack is just shirts, hats, stickers like we've got here. So all that good stuff. But yeah, please jump on board. That league code again is 122-155. Your chance to win $500 cold hard cash. Yeah, like I said, please do follow us on Instagram. There's a lot more stuff that we go into there. We've got captaincy choices. I tell you all the trades I make throughout the year. We've got best bets for the punters out there. We go in and we advertise the winner of the comp each week. So the leading scorer, of the week, they get a bit of a shout out. So we're just trying to build a bit of a community on Instagram. So if we can do that through this, you have to be either following us on Instagram or subscribe to our YouTube channel. Either one is fine. But just want to build a bit of a community around this 40-20 Sports. I'm loving all the interactions. So yeah, that's it. That's enough of that waffling on. We will get stuck into the good stuff. We will get stuck into what we all came here for, and that's to talk about Supercoach. So the first team we're going to look at today is the Penrith Panthers. Finished the year in second spot on the ladder with 17 wins, 7 losses. They would go on to win their 4th grand final and 5th grand final appearance in 5 years. Just phenomenal work from them. They also had the best defense in the competition. They have had the best defense in the competition for the last 5 years that they've made the grand final. There's no surprise there with Penrith for that. They're renowned for their defense and grinding out gritty games, which they did all year. Just consistently phenomenal. The Penrith Panthers, doesn't matter who's backing up, who fills what spot. They just churn out the good games and they barely have a bad one in them. The signings this year, the gains, Isaiah Papali'i, he comes over from the West Tigers, and Blaze Talagi shows up from the Parramatta Eels. Pretty good signings there, pretty handy. Isaiah Papali'i, a bit of talk about him getting second row spot there, but we'll talk about him a bit later. For the losses, Sania Taruva, he heads over to the West Tigers with Jerome Luai. Big talks about them throughout the year. James Fisher-Harris, he goes to the Warriors. Isaiah Yongi, he goes to the Eels. We will talk about him later on in the episode as well. And Tyrone Peachey has, from all reports so far, he's retired from rugby league. Their opening couple of rounds, they have the Sharks in Vegas, which is an interesting one. That's a home game for them, but technically away being in Vegas. They've got the Roosters then at home, Storm away, Rabbits away, Cowboys at home. Just want to note that the home games for the Penrith Panthers this year are all going to be played at CommBank, the ones that are there. They are taking a couple of games out of the bush and a couple of games to the likes of Vegas and Magic Round. There will be their home games as well. So just one to keep an eye on there with the Penrith Panthers. For the hooking role, look, not a lot there. Mitch Kenny, he's at 464k. Not really an option that I'd like. He's a bit of meat and potatoes sort of hooker. He'd be a tough carry even for draft players, really, if you're looking for hookers. Just a bit of stand and deliver sort of thing. He doesn't rely on a bit of creativity out of dummy half. He's just got Nathan Cleary, Isaiah Yeo there to feed, so I wouldn't be looking at Mitch Kenny. Front row forward, Lindsay Smith, 524k with a 53-point average. I was surprised at how high that was actually from last year. I sort of went a bit under the radar. Didn't expect too much out of him last year, but 53-point average is actually quite decent. Fisher Harris is gone, but I don't think he's going to get any more minutes because, again, his points were big, his minutes were big. 51 average for the minutes there, so I'm not too sure that improves either. So, look, 53-point average is decent, maybe for drafts in the longer, if you're down on picks and you're missing front rowers, maybe an option there. Liam Henry, 448k, 45-point average on last year. He averaged 38 minutes last year. I'm expecting that to grow significantly. He has a PPM of 1.2, which is very, very good. I think he's the man that benefits from Fisher Harris leaving. I think he's the man that can grow from extra minutes. When he played over 40 minutes last year, he had an average of 69 points. Granted, some of those games were 80-minute games in the second row. But again, he's got an average base of 42. He's very, very good. I like the look of him. I think even if he starts off the bench, he still will be decent. And he still will grow those minutes just because Fisher Harris isn't there. But yeah, Liam Henry, 448k. Probably wouldn't be starting with him, but I think decent option if he does get those points. He does have some high uptake games in him. 2RF, Isaiah Yeo, 727k. He's a 74-point average. Mr. Consistency. Finished the year last year the highest point scorer out of any 2RF, even with all the origin and all the, the restings of games and whatnot. I think he still played 22 games in total. So really, really resilient for starters. And I think Mr. Reliable, like we said. With the absence of Fisher Harris and Jerome Luai, I actually think that he sort of plays a little bit more direct. I think they'll use Nathan Cleary a hell of a lot more in attack, but I think with Isaiah Yeo, just the missing there of Fisher Harris, they're really going to play him as a bloke to get a bit more yardage. I think they're going to be a little bit light on in the forwards this year. Like we said, Lindsay Smith and Liam Henry really the only two beneficiaries of him going. Moses Leota will be in there, but he should just be stock standard. Minutes he's playing, he'll keep. Ended last year with a 74-point average. Out of the 22 games he played, he only went under 60 points 3 times. Mr. Reliable there, Isaiah Yeo. His lowest score of the year was 49. So even on his worst day, you're getting 50 out of him. Isaiah Papali'i, fair few people talking about him. 585k, 60-point average. Comes over from the Tigers where he never really hit the heights he did at Parramatta. Bit of a decline for him. Not being able to break the 60-point average the 2 years he was at the Concord there. So he got 60-point average, but I think it was only just. So couldn't get over that mark. After the couple of years at Parramatta, which was really, really promising, he was one of the best second rows and front row forwards. He was dual back then. It was really good to see. The only avenue of him starting in this side is if he gets a starting spot off Scott Sorensen. I can see a world where Scott Sorensen moves to the bench, but I'm not overly convinced by it. Papali'i, he's been pretty poor the last couple of years. He's by no means an automatic selection in that spot. I think we just need to wait and see what's going on in the trials with that. Scotty Sorensen could be used as a middle if they're a little bit skinny in the middles, but again, I'm not 100% sure Isaiah Papali'i plays starting right edge or left edge, wherever he would be playing. It'd be interesting to see, even if he does get the 80 minutes. So a bit of a wait and see on Isaiah Papali'i. I know a lot of people are jumping on him, but I'm a little bit cautious about that just because they have relied on Scotty Sorensen to be that 80-minute edge role before. Be interesting to see how they use it. For the halfback, Nathan Cleary, 811k with an 82-point average on last year. Comes out at a discount of last year. They're more than 100k. So a bit of a disrupted year from injury this year. But yeah, $100,000 cheaper than what he was last year. I think he's the clear number one at halfback. I think everyone should have him in their team. You know, a bit of uncertainty around Nico Hines' performances. Jerome Hughes coming off a career year. I think Nathan Cleary at 811k is pretty much a slam dunk. The departure of Luai, he's got a new halves partner in what they're saying. Maybe Blaise Talangi, could be Schneider, Cole, we're not really sure. But I think regardless of who he's partnered with, he's going to be the dominant ball player. So could be more points up for grabs. They are trying to get him fit for round one. I know he's got a shoulder injury, but still, all reports should be ready to go. 5'8", talking about those guys, Blaise Talangi, Brad Schneider, Jack Cole, all seem to be in a three-way battle for the number 6 jersey there at Penrith. A lot of people are saying Blaise Talangi has got it. I'm not 100% convinced on that either. I think Brad Schneider did a fantastic job last year. The Blaise Talangi move, look, he's got great attacking skills, but his defence, I think, still lacking a little bit. Whether they can get him in a full preseason and see how he goes and adjust to that 5'8" role will be a different thing. But yeah, I'm a little bit sceptical on it. I wouldn't be chucking Blaise Talangi in my side, especially being so expensive. And the fact that Brad Schneider has been moulded another year in that Penrith Panthers squad, I'm going towards Brad Schneider gets the 6 jersey. It's going against what everyone else is saying. Blaise Talangi, they think, has got it hands down, but I want to see what happens for round one off to Vegas. It'll be interesting to see who they pick. If Blaise Talangi can't pick up his act in defence, I think they'll go with Schneider. CTW, we've got Brian To'o, 688k, 70-point average there. Back-to-back years, he's been over the 70-point mark average, but I think his average is inflamed a little bit. He only 9 out of 21 games, he went over 60 points last year, so that's pretty ordinary for a bloke you're paying nearly 700k for. Has some huge scores of 174 and 124 in there, but only breaking the 60-point mark, on 43% of games. So pretty interesting stats here on Brian To'o. I sort of expected him to be a lot higher than that and a lot more consistent with bigger games, but I actually think there's more consistent guys out there for around that 700k mark. Casey McLean, 443k, taking away the game where he only played 50 minutes. He had 6 appearances last year for a 55-point average. Immediately at a discount, I believe. I think there's no doubt he's going to get that, whatever wing spot they put him on. I think he's a shoe-in for that wing spot after his 4-try rout of Papua New Guinea in the Pacific Champions. Apparently his brother was ahead of him, which would be nice for Supercoaches because he's about near bottom dollar. But Casey McLean, 443k, played really well last year as well. He's got a decent base for a CTW. Also, another thing, the Panthers don't have a bye until round 11 as well, if you're looking to start with Panthers players. But yeah, Casey McLean, I think he's decent value there. Fullback Dill Edwards, 839k, 85-point average. Became apparent last year, Edwards without Cleary is nearly a must-have. Edwards with Cleary is a bit of a sad old affair for Supercoaches. They just seem to rob points off each other. Cleary stands out as a dominant playmaker when Edwards is even in the squad, so I think Edwards loses a little bit of real estate there if he doesn't get that role for the clear playmaker there. Look, you're going to miss him in Origin period. I think he's got a monopoly on the fullback jersey there for the Blues. But yeah, I just think at 839k is probably a little bit too out of our price range there with the guns, especially if Cleary is fit. He's also trying to come back from the exact same shoulder injury as what Nathan Cleary has. So one to watch there. Apparently he'll be right for round one, but again, I wouldn't be going there. He might be a good draft one to pick up if the fullbacks, the gun fullbacks, the superstar fullbacks, are gone. Dylan Edwards would be a decent pickup there, but for 840k, I'm not going near it. For the Penny Panthers, the wrap up on them, I've got them first to third. I think they'll be up there again. There's no doubt. The loss of Fisher Harris will be huge, but again, Lindsay Smith, Henry, they'll just come into their own. I think they'll step up. I think Lindsay is a bloody international prop, so he'll fill the void, no dramas. Luai will be a bigger loss, I believe, but again, Talangi, Schneider, whoever they pick there, they'll be handy. They'll do a job there. They've built a system that everyone seems to have bought into, so I don't really think it's gonna affect them too hard on who that halves pairing is. As long as Nathan Cleary's there to steer the ship around, Isaiah Yeo will be there to help. They'll be fine. I think they'll be contenders once again. We move on to the next one, will be the Parramatta Eels. They finished last year in 15th spot with 7 wins, 17 losses. So a bit of a swap around from what the Penny Panthers did. Look, with all the talent and the signings that they've got there at Parramatta, they'll jot last year down as a bit of a one to forget, I think. Bit hard. Lost Mitchy Moses for most of the season. I think he only ended up with 8 games, and I think 3 of those were injury affected or concussion based. Also, the sacking of Brad Arthur around that team. There was a lot of rumours from about mid-year to when he did get sacked. Would have been a huge distraction. So if I was a Parramatta fan, I'd just be forgetting about that year. They're a bit up and down, the old Parramatta Eels, but I just think last year they got dealt a few tough blows with the Mitchell Moses and Brad Arthur thing. So fingers crossed they bounce back from that. The signings... the gains and losses is massive at Parramatta. It'll be interesting to see how they sort of jumble all these players in and out. They've got mass changes there. They have gained Zach Lomax from the Dragons, Isaiah Yongi from the Panthers, Dean Hawkins from the Rabbits, Joash Papali'i, Jared Samrani, Kitione Kaltaga, I've butchered that for sure, Josh Addo-Carr, they all come over from the Doggies. Jack Williams comes over from the Sharks, and Ronald Volkman is right now on a train and trial deal. I think that's a fantastic signing of Ronald Volkman as well on the train and trial. Bit unlucky with his injuries the last couple of years, but he is a fantastic half and a good little backup there. The losses, they're even greater. Ethan Saunders, he goes off to the Raiders. Blaze Talangi, he's to the Panthers. Regan Campbell-Gillard off to the Gold Coast Titans. Micah Sevo, he heads off to the Leeds Rhinos. Clint Gutherson, he's to the Dragons. Dejan Arce to Castleford. Kai Rodwell goes to Wakefield Trinity. Makahesi Makatoa has been released. Morgan Harper, he's off to the North Sydney Bears in Rezzies. Offahi Ogden, he's released. Tavada, Salma Panu, he's released. And Zach Sinney has found himself over in the Super League for Castleford. Fucking Jesus, what a mouthful. All right, like I said, mass losses there for the Parramatta Eels. They're obviously going for a bit of a clean out and a fresh start. Opening couple of rounds there, they have the Storm away, the Tigers at home, Bulldogs at home, Manly away, and then the Dragons at home. So a decent start to the year, couple of home games there for the Parramatta Eels. But, I don't like the look of 3 out of the 5 games there. The Storm away will be a tough one, especially being opening round. The Storm's so good in the first round, so good defensively as well. Tigers at home, 50-50 there, I think. It'll be interesting to see how the Tigers start throughout the year. And then the Doggies at home, that'll be a tricky one. They're so good defensively. But, Manly away as well at 4 Pines. Manly always so good at home. So it'll be interesting to see how they go there. The hooking rolls. We've got Brendan Hands, 349k, 35-point average on last year. Have a bit of a look at him. He averaged only the 54 minutes in games for last year. However, he did have 6 games last year playing 80 minutes. He is capable of churning out the big minutes, but it's just whether they rely on him for that or not. Apparently, Jason Riles, who's come to the club as coach, apparently at the start he was looking to sign a hooker. I think he had a lot of interest in Brayley from the Newcastle Knights there, but apparently he seems to be a lot more happy with that position and how that sort of unfolded there at the hooker spot. Look, I'm not saying he does get the full 80 in games, but games over 60 minutes for last year for Brendan Hands, he has a 50-point average, and that's over the space of 11 games. So over 11 games with the 60 minutes, 50-point average. I think that's decent if he gets it. There's just not a lot of word on. Jason Riles has come out and said, his stocks have improved at hooker. I don't know how he runs it. I don't know if he runs it 40 minutes. But keep an eye on it. If Brendan Hands gets the 60 minutes, he's decently priced at 350k. Could be one to watch. Joey Lussick, 344k. He only averaged 47 minutes, so he's in the same boat. It'll be interesting to see how they use their hookers. If one gets the nod over the other and one plays more dominant minutes in the 60-minute mark, could be worth an option. Front row forward, Joe Offahangawi. Look, we've got him at 437k, 44-point average. Look, with Regan Campbell-Gillard departing, there's minutes up for grabs. There's no doubt about that. He was averaging 56 minutes a game, and the next best was 42-minute games. Sorry, we're going to have to stop that. Sorry, lads, we just had a bit of a meltdown with the old computer. She shat herself, but we're all good. We're ready to run now. Talking about Joe Offahangawi. Joe Offahangawi, that is. 437k with a 44-point average. Look, with Regan Campbell-Gillard departing, I think there's minutes up for grabs. Regan Campbell-Gillard was averaging 56 minutes a game, so they're going to have to find that to disperse between their front row somehow. The next best minute with the games was 42 minutes a game. That was Junior Paulo, and Joe Ofahengawi wasn't too far behind. He was about 41 minutes a game. However, in the last 6 games, he averaged 59 points in 55 minutes. So if he does get the minutes that the departed Regan Campbell-Gillard has left with the hole in the front row forward spot, if Joe Ofahengawi gets it, he's 437k, dual, could be an option, nearly up around that 60-point average mark. So that's decent. It's decent value. Wiramu Greg, 232k. Look, he's been in the Eels system for a few years now. We've seen little snippets of him. He's never really got the minutes that we thought he would get, averaging just 24 minutes a game last year. Just keep an eye on him. Could be a little cheapy boomer that could come from Regan Campbell-Gillard giving up some minutes as well. In the 2RF spot, we've got Jermaine Hopgood. We're going to have a look at him. 657k off a 67-point average. Had his last game in round 14 of last year, out with injury with that back injury. He picked that up after Liam Martin dug a hole and buried him in Origin, so he never really recovered from that. He's owned by about 7% of Supercoaches so far, so there's a bit of interest in him. At the moment, I want to have a little look at him. I think coming off a serious back injury, he seems to be right for round 1, but I want to see what sort of minutes they play him at for the first couple of rounds. I think you could go with leaving him, having a look. Also, new coach coming in, Jason Riles. It'll be interesting to see if he plays him for the amount of minutes. He was up around the mid-60-minute average. Maybe because they've lost some middles and they're a bit light on in the middles, he gets a few more minutes, but there's every chance that he only runs out there and gives him 50 to 60 to start the year with that back injury. So I'd be having a little look at him to start the season. Jack Williams, 455k with a 46-point average. A bit of interest around him when a picture surfaced of him looking jacked to the tits at Eels pre-season training. I can't really see it though. He got 46 minutes a game 46 minutes on average a game at the Sharks. Can't really see that improving, and I can't really see his output improving a great deal. Charlie Geimer, popular cheapie at 232k, 40-point average. After Parra had a horror run with injuries, they got this bloke in for a debut. He played the 2 games. Unfortunately, his second game, out with an ankle injury, didn't play for the rest of the season. His first game, though, he was out enthusing all the senior players. His debut game was phenomenal. Just looked the goods. Looked right at home in a first-grade NRL sort of situation. So the only downfall with him is the only reason he's got his debut is because there was injuries to the likes of Hopgood, a couple of other middles there that didn't make it to that part of the season. Also, the signing of Jack Williams, who we just talked about, I think he'll probably get a jump ahead of him. So was quite popular. I had him in my side as well until sort of diving into the Parramatta Eels squad. I just think he probably doesn't get a spot based on how much depth they've got there now at that 13 and back row sort of spot there where he plays. So I'll be giving him a miss unless we get some breaking news and he shows up in Team List Tuesday. I think if he does get in the starting 17, he is worth a shout-out because his output was really good. But anyway, we'll move on to the halfback, Mitchell Moses. He is 628k with a 64-point average on last year. Only the 8 games in 2024. Really disappointing for Mitch. 3 of those games were injury-affected games, which is pretty disappointing to see. Look, a fair bit of interest around him because his price tag is only 628k, which is decent. Like I said, the 3 games of injury were quite poor scoring games, which you would expect. The downfall for Mitch will be, I think Lomax is going to get the kicking duties. I think if he does have the ability to go, 30-odd points for the game, Supercoach-wise, how is that score going to look now that he doesn't have the kicking duties and he loses 8 points for the 2 goals that he's kicked? Saying that, he does have a massive upside. He turned up twice in his 8 games, so he does have that ability as well. But I'm just super wary of the low games. If he has a couple of them string together and he loses a shitload of money, it's going to be really hard to transfer him over to a gun. For the 5'8 spot, Dill Brown, 651k with a 66-point average on last year. Gets the duels, which is nice. Good to see there. He played a lot of halfback last year with Mitch Moses, losing a lot of game time with the injuries. Last 3 years, his base has been 32, 37, and 35, which is off the charts for a 5'8" or half. Average was down last year to 67. The 2 years previous to that, he had 74 and 76, which goes to show that he actually works better with Mitchell Moses than he does by himself, which is a pretty interesting thing because I thought him being a dominant ball player, he might get a bit more scores, but he actually prefers Mitch Moses being there for Supercoach-wise. Unsure how that all works out with getting less ball, but might get a bit more quality ball. So, look, I like him. I think he'll be the number one 5'8". I think he'll improve on this year. 651K is probably a bargain that you can get him at. I'm just not prepared to pay up 651K for a 5'8", I think. I think there's better value out there. But if you were going Dylan Brown, I could understand it. I think if you were going to pay up premium dollars, sure, 651K, decent value for Dylan Brown. CTW's Zach Lomax, 773K, 79-point average last year. Came off a career season at the Dragons when he switched from centres to wing. But look, he signed with Para with the promise of moving to centre. That was all before everything had happened with him moving to wing. That was before he got an Origin berth, played for the Kangaroos. And it's looking like he's probably one of the best wingers in the world at the moment. So I don't know how you put him back into centres when he's had the career year like he did at the wing for the year before. So when he was playing at centre, he was making mistakes. He tried too hard. When he's on the wing, it was just take your hit-ups, score the tries, no flashy shit, just get it back to basics. And that worked really well for Zach Lomax. I'm just not sure on that 773 price tag if he moves to the centres. If he goes on the wing, I think probably still a bit overpriced being in a new team, and I'd want to see what happens. I think he will get the goal kicking. He kicked in Origin. He kicked in for Australia. I think his percentage is about 2 or 3% better than Mitchell Moses. So I think he'll get that. Just want to see how everything goes there with him getting in the centres and the wings. I think you much prefer him being on the wing spot for Supercoach and for rugby league purposes. It'll be interesting to see because I know Zach Lomax wants to be a centre. I can't understand it for the life of me. If that was me and I play on the wing, I'd rather play on the wing for the Blues and the Kangaroos than play in the centres and get pizzled and have my name run through the mud. If it doesn't work out and he goes to the centres, he's going to get put in the wing regardless in a couple of games. If it doesn't work out, the papers will be all over him, the media will be all over him. Buzzy Rothfield will say it's a bloody crime against humanity, so it'll be interesting to see what happens there. For another one on the sting, Josh Adokar, they signed him from the Doggies after being on the nose candy. 542K, 55-point average. 2 scores over 100 for Adokar as he moves over from the Doggies, like we said. The one thing he will have at Parramatta that the Dogs couldn't provide him, was 2 halves, 2 established halves that can swing the ball around, throw the ball out to their outside men without a drama, and call some shots. I just think he was really lacking that at the Dogs. I think it's going to do absolute wonders for him, absolute wonders for his attacking prowess. Although the fact is he does have an extremely low base. That is the thing that we've all known and come to Josh Adokar. Look, he can go on big spurts where he gets 100, 100, 100. He can go on spurts where he gets 20, 30, 20. So, look, he's one to watch. It'll be interesting to see how he works out there on the wing, but I'd be letting him go through the keeper at the start of the year. 542K is probably a little bit more expensive when there's guys that are coming back from injury that we can run with. All right, fullback, this one will get the nostrils flaring. Isaiah Yongi, 232K. Just the one game in the NRL, which was 47 against the Newcastle Knights. Last year, he was New South Wales Cup fullback of the year. But I'm about to tell you why he is a massive trap and you should avoid him at all costs. He's got a motor. We all know that. Huge work rate. He averaged 164 metres a game and 4.5 tackle busts a game, which sounds good. Awesome. They're awesome stats. But closer look, he doesn't have a lot more going on for him. 24 games last year in New South Wales Cup. He got 6 tries, 9 try assists, and only 11 line breaks. In fact, in the last 17 games of the year, he scored just the 1 try. 1 try in the last 17 games. In those same 17 games, he had just 4 line breaks, which is terrible stats. And in his opening 15 games of the year, he had just 3 try assists to his name. Remember, these aren't NRL stats, these are reserve grade stats. So we've got to have a bit more, expectation that there's going to be better defence in the NRL. So these numbers could potentially drop. They usually do when players come from reserve grade into first grade. His 47 that he did get was against the Knights, who is a team renowned for leaky defence. So a 47 fullback score against the Knights, that is one of the lowest that the Knights have let in out of any team for last year, 47. I think it's 3rd or 4th lowest that they've let them in. He did run for 256 metres and had 5 tackle busts. That part of his game he doesn't have a drama with. That is sound, that is quality, but there's just no major attacking stats. He did have a line break assist in that game, but the major attacking stats of tries, try assists, line breaks, they're nearly non-existent in reserve grade, so I'm not really sure how they're going to go in first grade. Mind you, Penrith Panthers were the best team in New South Wales Cup. He's moving over to a team that came 15th last year with the Parramatta Eels. It's got red flags all over it for me. The other thing is, if you do start with him, and other teams start with 3 gun fullbacks, with the rotation of their flex, he goes down in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th game, and he's either made you no money, 30K, 40K. The jump you need to get from 230K up to 700K at a minimum to get a gun fullback, I don't know where you're going to come up with those points. Say he runs at a 40, 50 point average for 3 or 4 games, he makes 100K, you beauty, he's at 330K. Then all of a sudden he gets an injury and you've got to come up with all this cash, an extra $400,000-$500,000 even there, and you've got to try and find a bloke like you're clutching onto a Pappenhausen, Reece Walsh, these kind of guys, maybe. I don't think you're going to be able to find the money to get to a Turbo, Latrell, Ponga, these guys that are primed to fly. I think it's going to be too tricky. Look, granted, at the moment, there isn't a lot of cheapies. I understand that, and he does have the potential to get a 50-point average, 60-point average, if there are some early attacking opportunities, but he's got the Storm first up. If he's only getting 47 against, a leaky Knights team, what's he going to get against the Storm? Look, I just don't think it's a decent option. I think there's too much risk around it versus reward. And look, if the attacking stats aren't coming in reserve grade, I don't know how they're going to show up in the first grade NRL. Yeah, let alone with a team that come 3rd last year. So anyway, that's my take on Yongi. That is where I'll be going. I'll be avoiding him like the plague. I think if something goes wrong with him, you're going to get yourself in hot curry and you're not going to be able to get out of it. For the Parramatta Eels, look, I think they sit somewhere between 8th and 13th for the year. I think there will be an improvement with the new coach, Jason Riles. They'll lift up from where they were last year. But also Moses, hopefully he stays fit, plays more than 8 games. They've got a lot of class in their outside backs with the likes of Lomax and Adokar coming in. Their halves pairing, if they click, they're good. Just worried about their middles. The loss of Regan Campbell-Gillard, I didn't realise how many minutes he was playing a game, but up in the mid-50 minutes a game mark is massive. Wondering where they're going to get them from will be very, very interesting. All right, we move on to the Dragons. They came 11th last year with 11 wins, 13 losses. I actually think they did a lot better than what people thought they were going to do. They were tipped to beat the spoon. Look, they were just 1 win out of the 8, which is decent. It's a decent year. It seemed a lot more disappointing, I think, because they were coming 8th in round 24. They then lost their next 3 games. So to bow out and end up 11th. But their destiny was in their own hands at round 24. They couldn't finish. So that'll be leaving the fans a little bit disappointed on last year, but I still think it was a better than expected year for what they were going for. The gains for them, the retirement village of Cookie comes over from the Rabbitohs and Clint Gutherson from the Eels. I think they're decent signings. They do need some experienced heads over there, so I like the signings there. Lachlan Ilias comes over from the Rabbitohs. Valentine Holmes is the massive one from the Cowboys. Not a lot of talk on that either. But Val Holmes coming down from the Cowboys. Nathan Lawson, they pick him up from Australian Rugby Sevens. Apparently doing wonders in pre-season, but so's every other man and his dog. The losses there, Zach Lomax, he heads over to the Eels. Savelio Tamale, he goes to the Raiders. Jack Bird to the West Tigers. Max Fige, he goes off to the Dolphins. Alec Tutavake, he goes to the Leeds Leopards. Ben Hunt to the Broncos. Dan Russell off to Warrington. Farmanua Brown, he's been released from his contract. And Jesse Marshke is off to Resi's with the North Sydney Bears. For the opening couple of rounds there, they've got the Dogs at home, Souths at home, the bye, Storm at home, Eels away, and then the Titans at home. So 4 out of their first 5 games are at home, which is really good. Just again, a couple of those teams are quite decent. Dogs are very good defensively. Souths are looking for a bit of an uptick this year. Got the bye round 3, which is very awkward. Storm at home, hard. Gets a little bit easier towards the Eels and Titans in the next 2 games there. But yeah, bit of a tough run for the Dragons. For the Hookers, we'll look at Damien Cook, 662k with a 67-point average. Huge no-go for both Hookers there. Jacob Little also a no-go for me. I think Damien Cook still gets decent minutes, but I'm just a little wary of when Lidsey comes on, where they will put Cook. I think they'll put him on as a bit of a running middle, which I'm not really sure how that's going to work out. Got thrown around a couple of spots last year, Cookie, but I just don't think he's got the body type to do that, and I think he's going to be hampered by that quite largely. Jacob Little, he'll go back to the bench, no doubt, if he even does that. So I think both of them are an avoid. I think Cookie's well overpriced if he's going to get shipped into a sharing hooking role or a position that he's not quite used to. Front row forward, look, there's not a lot to talk about there for the Dragons. There's whispers Francis Molo has said he doesn't want to train with the team anymore. That could open up some avenues later on down the track. We'll have a bit of a look at that and we'll keep everyone informed. There is a bloke by the name of Loco Pacifici Tonga. I'm sure I butchered that as well. He is 198k, bottom dollar. Coach Flanagan come out and said he's going to blood him in the trials. Going to get some good minutes in the Charity Shield as well. So just with Francis Molo not training with the club, no more has gone into that. We'll see what happens there. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see this kid. They reckon is an absolute monster. Payne Haas sort of body type with the mobility of him as well. So be interesting to see what they do with him. I think he's 20 as well. He's not one of these 18-year-olds that we're looking at in some of the other cases for front row forward. For Cheebies coming through, 20 years old, that's probably decent enough to enter first grade. One to watch. 2RF, again, the forward pack is skinny. Supercoach-wise for the Dragons. Not a lot to talk about here. Jaden Sewer, he is 656k, but I think he's well overpriced. Especially the halves pairing that he's going to have this year. Won't have Benny Hunt working with him. I just think for that sort of money, you can nearly get a gun, and I don't think Jaden Sewer is it. Luciano Leilua, 545k. He's much the same. The halves pairing, not really sure how that's really going to work out. Just think that's overpriced, and it's too much of a risk at that sort of 545k mark. Cashman Brothers, I think they may be a smoky. I don't think they're going to get a starting role. May get some good minutes off the bench, but again, not really sure how that works and how that is going to play out. So Cashman Brothers are one to look at because they're phenomenal footballers. If they get a bit of a start in the trials and get named on Team List Tuesdays, we'll have a bit more of an in-depth look at them, but at the moment, it's pretty skinny. The halfback spot, Lachlan Ilias coming over from the Rabbits. He's 348k, starts the year very cheap, but I'm nearly certain it's for a good reason. The Rabbitohs, they flicked him off for an Englishman there, Lewis Dodd. Look, I just think if he couldn't get the Bunnies firing with all that potential and attacking prowess that the Bunnies had, I'm really struggling to think how he's going to get the Dragons pack and Dragons outside backs firing. I think he's in for a bit of a tough year. I think 348k is potentially where he may end up. I wouldn't be looking at him as a cheapie option or a bargain option. I don't like it whatsoever. Kyle Flanagan for the 5'8 spot, 403k, 41-point average. Look, he might be able to get a bit more control over the team this year with the departure of Ben Hunt. I'm not saying he will, but he may get a little bit more ball, Ben Hunt being so dominant. Look, he only had 2 games without him last year, scores of 48 against the Panthers and 88 against the Broncos. So it's decent. I wouldn't start with him. 403k is sort of a little bit awkward. There's a bloke, Metcalf, there that's about 440k. I'd be more inclined to start with him. But, you know, if the uptick's there, and he becomes the dominant half and he starts getting a bit more attacking plays and that, maybe worth a look. I'd keep an eye on him, but I don't see much uptick for Kyle Flanagan either. CTW's Val Holmes, 784k, comes in from the Cowboys, 80-point average there. Look, last 3 years, he's gradually gotten better and better. So he had averages of 69, 72, and 80. On that trajectory, he should get 84. Doubt it. Look, he'll get the kicking duties. So Lomax is gone. He'll have no competition for the kicking duties. Look, there's one little positive I can see out of him going to the Dragons for Supercoach scores. At the Cowboys, Drinkwater would do this sweeping play, and he loved to cut Valentine Holmes out. He did it without question. Always did it, the bastard, because I would own Valentine Holmes last year. And without question, it would get into attacking ball, Drinkwater, shift a ball out, cut Holmes out, straight to the winger, and 9 times out of 10, they'd friggin' score off it, which would be good. Val Holmes would get 4 points for kicking the goal, but I think there's a world where with Gutho at the back, Gutho's really good at hitting a strike player. He's really good at knowing what he's got around him. He's a smart footballer, Gutho. He'll understand that he's got Val Holmes out there, and Val Holmes will be their number one attacking weapon. Whether they get enough attacking opportunities, the Dragons, compared to what the Cowboys did, I'm not sure. Probably highly doubtful, but still. Val Holmes could be an option where he gets a little bit more ball, being the number one attacking option in this team. I think he'll be. Just a theory, one to look at. Keep an eye on it. I think it's 784k. It's probably a bit too high of a gamble to take on. I wouldn't do it, but yeah, little one to look at. Moses Sully, a little bit of interest around him, 470k with a 48-point average. Look, another one just to watch. Flano being the dominant player, maybe getting a little bit more ball if he is on his side again. Moses Sully could see an uptick if he gets a bit more attacking options, although we just did talk about how much we think they'll go towards Val Holmes. So could be clutching at straws there, but Moses Sully, just a maybe. For the fullback role, Clint Gutherson, 675k, 69-point average, comes over from the Eels. Look, I think he'll no doubt bring a lot of his experience and enthusiasm that the Dragons will need. I think he's a fantastic signing for that. Look, one thing about Guffo is when he is playing with halves that aren't dominant halves or aren't experienced halves, he really steps up. He shows a leadership there. He's got the captaincy role shared with Cookie there now. So I think he's going to be very vocal in attack. Like we said before, he's quite a smart footballer. He knows how to get the ball to his outside weapons, especially in good ball. I'm just not sure that the attacking upside is there. I'm a little bit wary of how the Dragons are going to go this year. I've got them pretty low on the table. So not someone I'm looking at, but if you do miss out on these guns in draft, we talk about draft a little bit here, but if you do miss out on the big guns, the Turbos, Latrells, Ponga, Walsh, for some reason you're way down in your draft, you're in a 20-man draft and you don't have a fullback, I think Gutherson will still be there for when you do need a fullback, and he'll have a decent run during the Origin period, always does. So yeah, one to look at for the drafts if you're well down on picks and all the fullbacks have been taken. But yeah, for the Dragons, I've got them 14th to 17th. Unfortunately, look, I think they'll actually start pretty well. I think the enthusiasm will be there, but look, I think with what I believe is probably one of the weakest halves pairings in the competition is with Flano and Ilias. Match that with the old, I shouldn't say older, but the signature of some of the aging stars. I just don't know how that'll go for them. I think the back end of the season will be quite tough for the Dragons. I think, especially if they get some injuries, I'm worried about their depth. Yeah, it'll be a bit of a sad old year for the Dragons as far as we're concerned here at 4020. So anyway, look, that'll probably wrap it up. I've waffled on enough for tonight. So yeah, like we were talking about, please go and follow us on Instagram and YouTube. Again, the 4020 Cup league code is 122155. Please go up and sign on to that. First spot, $500 cash. Second spot, $250 cash. Third, a merch pack. So we're not playing for firsts only like some other places. First, second, and third up for grabs. Jump on board, legends. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Bye.